Welcome to the Vertical MRO Podcast, where we dive into the world of helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul. In each episode, we talk with the technicians, engineers, and experts who keep helicopters flying. Because at the end of the day, no maintenance, no mission.
You know, for me, it always goes back to leadership, and you meet all these wonderful people. We're at a conference, we have a beer or a social or a non-alcoholic beer, and we chat. And then you listen to somebody going through a podcast and they explain their journey, and it's interesting, everybody's journey. Everybody you talk to, everybody you listen to wanted to elevate the game in the hangars they were working at. They wanted to make it not just for themselves, but for their team. And it's a pretty common theme. And until you start listening to the podcast and listening to everybody's journey, they're all very similar. They're different how they got there, but the actual core values are very similar.
Welcome to the Vertical MRO Podcast, brought to you by Vertical HeliCASTS in partnership with Vertical Magazine. In this episode of the Vertical MRO Podcast, MRO podcast hosts Ronie, Scott, Terrence and Jon, along with producer and host David, reflect on the past year on the Vertical MRO Podcast. We have an opportunity to discuss highlights and the growth of the MRO community developed through the podcast and through the Vertical MRO Conference. We talk about the excitement surrounding the next generation of aviation professionals and the need for continued conversation promoting the maintenance community. Lastly, we'll discuss what's exciting for 2026 as we look forward, sharing our hopes for the future of the industry and emphasizing the importance of investing in people and adopting new technology. Thank you to our sponsors, Safe Structure Designs, Vertical Aviation International, and Airbus. Hey, welcome to the Vertical MRO Podcast. I'm today's host, John Gray. Well, one of the hosts. We got a lot of hosts here, so it's going to be a fun conversation. The idea in today's conversation is just to reflect on what a year it's been. You know, 2025 is flown by. It's been great. You know, you look back in the rearview mirror sometimes and you're like, holy cow, I don't realize that I was involved in all these things or us collectively as a team. Until you stop and think about it, you write these things down and you're like, holy cow. So again, that's our goal today is to talk about this year kind of in reflection as far as the MRO podcast, some of the highlights we've had there, the MRO industry, and then the MRO conferences is going to be part of that too, right? Like what a cool year and launching that conference and the movement that's created. So excited to be here with you guys. With us to join in the conversation is the producer and host, David.
Oh, you're throwing that title around there, John.
Well, you've earned it.
I didn't notice.
You've earned it.
It's exciting. Glad to be a part of the wrap up, and it's been a pretty awesome year with a lot of changes, a lot of new things, a lot of growth for the podcast. Can't feel anything other than grateful for everybody that's on the recording and the other cadre of hosts and all the guests that aren't with us on the recording, but just very thankful.
You forgot the potential Grammy award-winning producer title on there.
The HeliCASTS platform as a whole is grown a lot this year too. And, you know, I'll speak for the Hangar Z podcast. One of our goals in the Hangar Z podcast is to bring in a hosting cadre of experts from throughout the law enforcement, public safety, aviation industry that truly are experts in their own right in this particular discipline of thing, whatever part of that area that they represent. And we've represented that here, or we've brought that over to the MRO podcast as well. So each co-host and host on the MRO podcast is this very kind of niche level of expertise, and also a broad level. So it's been really cool to bring hosts on that really do elevate these conversations. Ronie, Scott, Terrence, you guys are all part of that group. So thank you guys for building up our community, for being a part of these conversations. Your expertise, your passion for the industry is palpable. And that's, you know, why we love having these conversations with you. So thank you guys for joining. Let's start with Ronie. How you doing, Ronie?
I'm doing great, John. Just got back, just like you guys, from European Rotors, about to hit to the Aero Work Safety Conference, which is, to me, next to Verticon, it is my favorite event. This is the bread and butter to me of our industry, fighting fires, making sure all utilities done, you know, power's on, the lights are on, the fires are out. Like without them, nothing else works. So it's my favorite conference by far.
Scott?
It's been a hell of a year. Happy to be here. It's I think of last year when we started some of these conversations to what the conferences and how it went. It's been a lot of excitement. It's been great.
Yeah, Terrence, you're on the newer side on the MRO podcast. Had a chance to formally meet at the MRO conference, which was really cool. When you look back at the time that you've had in 25 and some of the conversations you had at the conference and on the podcast so far, what are some of your thoughts?
Yeah, well, thanks, John. The thing that stands out to me the most is sometime, I think it was in June, when I started really listening to Vertical HeliCASTS purposely, because I had about 3-4 hours of driving a week on my hands. And I stumbled on the HeliCASTS and I went, this is great. And then suddenly Kelowna VMRO pops up and I'm going, I got to go to that. That just sounds fantastic. And so I've been looking forward to that since June. And so I talked it up with whoever I was rubbing shoulders with. And lo and behold, a whole bunch of them came. And everybody has nothing but positive to say. And so that was pretty exciting for me. And it's quite a highlight for the year, for that matter. And I really appreciate you guys, how you've stick handled this whole thing. And I think, if we get into more in depth in the industry, we understand why. And that's a question that maybe we can all help answer going forward here.
Yeah, Terrence, I joked with John, back when it was just the Hangar Z, I was able to mow my lawn with one episode, and it was enough that once a week I'd be fine. I would have to have like an entire city's worth of neighborhoods to mow lawns to catch up with all the content being put out on the Vertical HeliCASTS platform. So the Grammy award-winning producer David, obviously has his hands full and not enough time in the day. Maybe I need to move to Canada and start snow blowing to finish up the rest. So.
Well, you're welcome to it, Ronie. Yeah, it's a massive amount of content, and you guys aren't alone. Like literally from the MHM vertical team, we have the same comment. Like it's a lot of content. It's a lot of well thought content and a lot of amazing guests and everything that's being generated. That has been what is in my ears. I clearly don't get enough of it. It's in my ears as I'm shoveling snow this past week too. So, yeah.
Well, what I do appreciate is just we found a home, and I'm sure that there's more homes to be found still for the various different voices, for the different people in the industry, from the public safety perspective to the Valor and HEMS and now, right, the home for MRO, right? We have our own home here, which is great to see.
One of the interesting takeaways I saw at that conference, and you guys jump in here, is we're all of a certain vintage. And at the MRO conference, you saw the young people who are excited about it, the next generation. And you didn't really know they were coming up. I can honestly say I didn't know there was that excitement. And that's pretty neat to see. That's not that we're old, but
we need a lot more of them, right?
Yes.
I agree with you. Scott, we get into our own silo and you kind of think, well, what surrounds me in this particular silo is what must exist everywhere. And then you go to this international conference, and you see that's maybe not the case. You see these young folks that are passionate, excited, that have this work ethic that you might have thought, well, I don't know if that exists anymore. But no, you see these kids who are so passionate, so driven to be a part of this industry. Their flight gets canceled. They drive from Chicago to Irving, Texas, just to be a part of it. Like, that's really cool. That's the kind of stuff that's inspiring to me, is to see, yes, this next generation does want to continue to be a part of this thing that we love so much, So that was really cool. When I think through back to what you're talking about, Ronie, and the HeliCASTS platform as a whole, that's one thing that makes me and I think the whole HeliCASTS team proud is to have 5 podcasts now that kind of represent these different segments within the helicopter industry, and to see the high quality of conversations that comes from each one. But this one in particular, the maintenance side of things, is I think what I'm probably most proud of, because this is the one that has lacked a voice for so long. So it's been really cool to provide a platform for people to come on and answer some of the questions that a lot of people have, that kind of what Terrence brought up, asking why and coming up with some of those solutions and stories that surround that. David, for you've listened to literally every conversation that's been on the podcast platform this year from the MRO side. What are some of your takeaways? What are some of the highlights that come to mind?
Oh boy. I would say I'm actively going through the list of recordings from almost the past year and a half and trying to start to pull out some of those really meaningful 10-minute segments of conversation so that we could potentially share those in a larger form with people. And ones that like stand out for me is, like talking to James Helke from Leonardo, and just the down to earth approach that he had to maintenance, his military experience feeding into it, not taking no for an answer, showing up at the FBO 7 times, asking, is there a job yet? Is there a job yet? And then the one that really stands out from recent memory too is talking with Dale from HeliLadder, and just his very important story talking about the importance of maintenance and doing everything that we can do within our power to keep the helicopters flying, and being the best advocate for maintenance and quality maintenance that we can be. So those are some that stand out, but there are so many more. And from a conference level, I'd echo sort of what you guys were saying, that the next generation, I talk to almost as many people that are either just looking to start their career in helicopters or only 2 or 3 years in, as I did to people that have been in this industry for 20 plus years. And that's nice. That's great that we were able to hear their voice and to hear from them from a high school level to university level to, apprentices that are, a year or 2 into being on the floor. So, those are really important stories that we've heard.
Yeah, that cross segment was really cool. Like you said at the conference, everything from somebody who doesn't even have any kind of certification yet to someone who's Mike Broderick level, superstar, 50 plus years in the industry and loves it. It was really cool to spend time with him in Kelowna. Terrence, for you, when you think through some of the conversations you've heard on the MRO podcast in particular, are there any that come to mind, or any impactful stories that kind of stick out to you?
As far as the MRO podcasts, let's see, I was listening to Dale with the heli ladders, and I really appreciated his thoughts when he was sharing about, he was kind of supervising an apprentice one day and watching the work they were doing as they were standing on the top of a ladder and leaning over the aircraft. And he's going, what is going on here? We haven't changed a thing. And I went, absolutely true. And so that's where the whole idea of heli ladders came from what I listened to on his podcast. So that kind of topic, I mean, it sounds ridiculously simple, but it's true. I mean, we've been doing that for 50 years or more. And why are we still doing it today? So that kind of thing, that stands out to me. And I really appreciate that kind of topic for sure.
Me too. It highlights how sometimes we're looking for these really complex solutions to problems, and they're literally right in front of us. And we're just, for whatever reason, I think it goes back to the old adage that we do what we do because it's what we've always done. We stand on this rickety old ladder because, well, that's what we have and that's what we've always done. Well, no, there's actually probably a better way to do it. So I love that conversation too. And that was super impactful. That whole 2-part series was great. Scott, for you, you've been a part of a lot of conversations as a host, as a co-host. You've listened to many. You were part of the panels, both at the conference and at AEM. Had a chance to hang out with you and talk there. Yeah. What are some of the impactful things or takeaways that came out of those conversations that kind of strike you?
For me, it always goes back to leadership, and you meet all these wonderful people. We're at a conference, we have a beer or a social or a non-alcoholic beer, and we chat. And then you listen to somebody going through a podcast and they explain their journey, and it's interesting, everybody's journey. Everybody you talk to, everybody you listen to wanted to elevate the game in the hangars they were working at. They wanted to make it not just for themselves, but for their team. And it's a pretty common theme until you start listening to the podcast and listening to everybody's journey. They're all very similar. They're different how they got there, but the actual core values are very similar. That's one of my takeaways. And I think that's what makes everybody get along so well.
Yeah, I think on this podcast and the Hangar Z podcast, leadership is kind of one of the standout issues that faces our industry as a whole. And I think it speaks to us kind of having a process that needs improvement, right? In the maintenance side and in law enforcement, we pick leaders because of the job they did in the technical side of what they were doing, not because they would be a great leader. In many ways, we don't give these folks even a chance to develop into these leaders. We just say, hey, congratulations. Friday, you take a test. Monday, hey, congratulations, you're now sergeant, you're now leader. And you've been given no training. So I think some of our hope with the conference and these conversations is to get people start to think through that, right? Like, what does a good leader look like? And what traits does that good leader impart on the people they work with? That's critical. Having Clint Pulver at the conference, both in Kelowna and Irving, was huge. I got a chance to talk to Clint quite a bit this year, and every time I'm with Clint, I'm just inspired. You know, the way he treats people, the way he promotes the industry is mind blowing to me. And it's like we just talked about with HeliLadder. It's not this complex system of effective leadership. It's very simple and it's very actionable in the things that he talks about. So I love the conversation of leadership. So Scott, I'm glad you brought that up. I think of James Helke, you know, Ramon Trapp from Airbus. What a great conversation I had with him. His philosophy and leadership style, I think, is in line with all these philosophies that Clint brings up. Same as James Helke and a bunch of other folks that we've had in the podcast. Ronie, for you, again, you've been a part of a lot of the conversations, the panels, as a moderator, as a panelist. What are some of the things that were said, talked about, or incidents that stand out to you as impactful? Safe Structure Designs offers creative, customizable ergonomic safety solutions with over 20 years of experience. Their custom design process is free, ensuring safety and efficiency. Let them create your ideal solution. Visit www.safe-2.com. That's www.safe-2.com for more information.
Well, you know me, John. I'm a technology guy, right? There's the bread and butter of how you do things all day, every day, in the way that you've done it for 30 years, and the way that we need to be doing it 30 years from now, right? And so I go and I take a look through, the conversations that we've had this year and what we've been trying to promote, and different ways of doing things to do that. And so the first thing, there was kind of 3 different series that stood out to me. The one is the Bell, basically Tech Talks, right? That are on here when there's a certain ASB or airworthiness directive or something that Bell wanted to get out there and give a little bit more flavor to about what happened, why it's out there, and what the course is. Just have anywhere from a 7-minute to 20-minute discussion about what that is, I think drives a lot of value, right? Yeah. I remember, those ASBs or ADs come out and you're like, okay, what's next? Where am I in line on getting the spare part? How at risk am I? Scott and Terrence, I mean, you guys probably live this way more than I do, right? But having that extra, okay, let me hear from somebody and straight from the horse's mouth of product support, that I think that's one of the ones that really stood out. The second one was Rob Esty from Pathfinder Aviation. They have operations all the way in the Arctic to now the Antarctic too, taking over the Science Foundation contract. And, as much as, hot-shotting something out to the middle of AOG in the middle of Canada is hard, it's even hard. It's about as Hades style fire of hot-shotting something down to Antarctica. And how do you do that, right? Yeah. And to hear how they're using new technology like HUMS to do more predictive maintenance on that and understand and pre-plan better to where that next hotshot is actually going to come as more of a scheduled flight, was pretty impressive to hear. Mm-hmm. And the last one is, and it's on the leadership side, but it's also putting your money where your mouth is, was the recent conversation with Ryan Weeks over at MD Helicopters, a little bit of a joint conversation on the helicopter podcast side. For so long, everybody talked about customer support with MD, and rightfully so. They needed to get beat over the head quite extensively with what was going on. And he's made a concerted effort to do that. Are they perfect? No, right? He'll admit that every single day, but he is a data-driven guy trying to do the best with his team to get that up and going. But then coming back and doing what people have asked for, improve the product, right? They can't afford a new product. Maybe they might not want to invest in a brand new product, but they love the aircraft that they fly every day. And so the new series of the Super D, Super E, Super B, Super Z, I don't know. There's going to be so many different supers. The Super Series, I guess. Ryan, you can maybe buy me a beer for calling it that. The Super Series. I think that's great to see, right? Investing back into the product line, investing into the MROs to giving them the ability to go out and do that, and investing into their customers. What we're going to need to see over the next 24 months is the market who's been begging for this kind of stuff. Are they going to put the money where their mouth is?
Yeah. and what a great leader he is. Talk about a humble servant. I love his philosophy and what he's doing. You're right. He's trying to make things better, right? He isn't actually trying, he's doing it.
Yeah.
To your point about Bell, I do love the Tech Talk series, the Bell Alerts. When I think of myself as a pilot, and you guys are all probably rolling your eyes. I know pilot's got to say something about being a pilot, but as it pertains to ADs, we used to have a board and we'd post the ADs up on the board, and what would happen is you'd see the AD up there, probably sit up there for a week or two before people read it. It's just not an easy, convenient way or an effective way to consume that information. So Bell's thinking outside the box, along with us, and coming up with a way to consume that information while you're driving, while you're mowing your lawn, while you're blowing the snow, whatever you're doing, you're able to consume that information in a much more convenient way that you're able to retain and process differently, right? That some people don't retain information well when they read it. Others are audible. I'm an audible person, right? I want to hear it and I want to see it. It was really cool that Bell did that. And then thinking outside the box, with Bell Tech Talk, that was something that we developed with them. And I think it's great to have issues that directly affect Bell customers, which ultimately affect most other operators as well, right? And talk to those operators and those folks in a way that's helpful. Their customer service philosophy is great, and it was just a really cool addition with the Tech Talk. So, David, I know we've had a lot of conversations about that too. What are your thoughts on the alerts and Tech Talk and kind of the philosophy surrounding that?
I'm excited for 2026. The conversations already with Bell have been so encouraging and inspiring in terms of how they're now thinking about the different conversations that can be had, talking intentionally in terms of the different categories of the airframes or airframe specific, and just covering a wider scope there, still deep diving into structures and everything there. So, and alerts, Mark Dubé has been a champion with the hard work that it is to get that information out there. And there'll be lots more of that coming in 2026 from everything that we're hearing. So, very excited to see that. And it lays the gauntlet down to all organizations, whether OEM or manufacturer or whatever, that there's different ways of just getting this information out. And the door is open at MRO Podcast if the people that you're trying to talk to are maintainers. And we're excited to be a voice for that community and to provide a conduit that way. And I was going to sort of pivot that into the voice that we are having with the hosting cadre. Having Ronie, Scott, and Terrence on this recording, knowing that we have Howie, who joined us for the conference and was a rock star in Kelowna with so many conversations that we had there. And then Faith Ortega, who was a part of that heli ladder recording with helicopter work aids. That was some of my favorite conversations or anecdotes that came out of that, where I know it's exactly what scratches John's itch about trying to understand maintenance, because it's talking about this little item or this product that makes the job that little bit easier. And that's sort of the way that, our brains are set to work. And so they're trying to do that. So Faith has been a rock star that way. And now excited that we're able to welcome Beth Christianos to that cadre as well. We'll be hearing from her over the course of 2026 too. And Terrence's episode, sort of a deep dive on Terrence, is coming out in the new year in the first 2 weeks. So stay tuned for that, where you get to hear a bit more about Terrence's background, where that passion comes from for maintenance, which was so cool to see from even the first conversation that we had with Terrence, that this is truly something that runs in his blood, and immediately made sense why it was on his radar to get to Kelowna as fast as he could. So very excited for the cadre, and that this is going to be a voice for maintainers as a whole, and the door is open for anyone to be reaching out with ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when I look forward to 26, one of the things that's exciting for me is the level of organic conversation that's going to come out of these conversations with all you hosts that really have spent a lot of time perfecting your craft. That's what's exciting to me. I love being a part of these conversations. I love this industry. And I know that I don't have that technical knowledge that you guys do that will bring these conversations to the next level. So that's really exciting for me. Excited to continue having conversations on leadership, mental health, some of those conversations, I think, are the most valuable, overlooked conversations that can be had, year round. So look forward to having that here across the HeliCAST platform. For you guys, I'll pose the question, as far as what you're looking forward to in 26 for content. And Ronie, we'll go back to you, and we'll go to Scott and then Terrence. So Ronie, what's exciting for you? What are you interested or excited to talk about in this next year?
For 2026, I think, and apologies to my Canadian friends across the border, but the upcoming divestment of another 600 UH-60Ls to the commercial market is going to have a big impact within not only North America, eventually maybe over the border or not, but within the rest of the world, right? Australia, they're flooding into Australia. They're flooding into, they're starting to go into Europe and so forth. That's going to be a great potential for the MRO market, right? Ace Aero, Arista, Hangar, Seaview Aviation. You have all these different people that are dedicated to almost customizing UH-60s nearly totally, right? And that's a huge market. Will it have impact on the Bell Media market? As a Bell guy, yeah, unfortunately, it's going to have an impact of that, right? Absolutely. But how do we start that transition of training for folks? What are those impacts and what kind of technologies? Most of these aircraft, Limas and eventually Mikes, they had hums on those aircraft when they were in service, but in their maintenance manuals, procedures were developed around it, but it's obsolete technology. What are they going to use then, right? Mm-hmm. And then going to things like Ace Aero, where they're putting G5000 state-of-the-art cockpits into different things.
Yeah,
brand new avionics, lots of mechanic work. You're going to have plenty of parts. Like, it's really going to have an impact. And then on top of that, the U.S. Army is talking about divesting even more aircraft, CH-47s and various other things. You're going to see a sea change here in the utility market, right? And public safety market within this that's going to have an impact on the industry. And the question is, how do commercial operators adapt? How fast do the regulatory agencies keep up with that? We've already heard the pushback and holding back on the reins between the Alphas and the Lima models because those horses charged out of that barn, right? I mean, full speed gallop, Kentucky Derby winning races of everybody had to get one as fast as possible. And I think the FAA realized that they need to pull that back a little bit. Transport Canada obviously pulled back, but you're starting to see this again in Eastern Europe and various other places. So to me, I think that's going to be one of the biggest things in 2026 is that. I think the other aspect, they talked about extensively at the Vertical MRO conferences with the OEMs up on stage. It's still a ton of pricing pressure that's going to be on parts and supply chain. Everybody talks about it, lead time forecasting, various other things, but part prices will continue to go up, which is going to lead to what do I pay on, right? Do I go out and take more used serviceable material? Do I do more PMAs? Where is this going to go? OEMs continue to push even more heavy on long-term contracts, either on PBH or some kind of dedicated contract. The world is changing, and within the next 5 years, all these things are going to have a pretty impactful statement to where we're going.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think through the changes that are coming in a very short amount of time, right? With that flooding of the market. Who would have thought 2 years ago that the U.S. Army is going to divest of all those aircraft? What's happened geopolitically with Ukraine and Russia has changed that whole landscape in ways that I could have never imagined. So it is interesting to follow both, from a technical standpoint and also from a geopolitical standpoint. Scott, for you, as you look forward to 26, what are some of the exciting either topics or guests or things just in general to talk about in the podcast?
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.
One of the big industry changes I'm sure is going to happen, and this leads into kind of where Ronie was talking about these Black Hawks and that. But I think I truly believe the next big thing isn't going to be the Black Hawks. It's going to be the drones, the pilotless aircraft that they have. And, you're talking, they just opened up a maintenance center in Canada. It's an approved Transport Canada drone center. Like, this is happening, and it's going to take a lot of that utility market away. And from the pilot side, but from the maintenance side, you're still going to be doing that maintaining. And Transport Canada is predicting a huge inroads on that. And I think that's going to be the next sector. And the young kids are going to like that. That's sexy. That's new. And yeah, so that's pretty neat. Another thing I really enjoy on the podcast is hearing everybody's stories.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one for me. And I'm excited to hear those.
Me too. We talked about it offline a little bit, but I think most people in our industry have overcome a fair amount of adversity to earn the certificates they have to get to where they are to do the things they do. Those human element or those human interest pieces to me are very interesting to hear and talk about. It's inspiring, in a lot of ways. And to what you're talking about with drones, we have this conversation on the Hangar Z podcast a lot. I think when drones were first introduced to the public safety aviation industry, there was a fear that drones were going to completely replace the manned aviation side of things. And what we found is we identify some of the strengths and weaknesses of the drone programs, at least in public safety, is that they've become in a lot of ways more of a complementary tool than anything else for us, which is really cool. We find that drones can go down and search the level in the way that helicopters can't. Drones can literally clear vehicles looking for suspects inside of a car, where in a helicopter, you can't get that angle a lot of times. So it's been really cool to see how these two things work together. So excited to see how that continues to grow and change things in the utility market, the health market. I think about the LA basin, the coastal fog that comes in all the time. If you're wanting to fly a heart from one hospital to the next, and you can't because your IMC conditions prevent that, well, that's all changed now with drone technology, right? And that's some of that stuff that's coming down with that technology, and that's exciting to me. So I do love those conversations, and it goes back to the idea of technology that Ronie brought up. Those are the kind of things that excite me as well.
Yeah, just chiming in on that. I mean, you think about ways that pilots are taking jobs to build hours, right? Crop dusting, tuna boat catching, and that kind of stuff. A lot of these things are ways that these drones are maybe able to replace that, right? Where are these pilots going to build their hours from now? So even challenges on that side of the business too.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a real challenge. You look at some of that offshore stuff where they're looking at putting drones in there where they'd have junior pilots, flying supplies back and forth. You're going to lose all that. And how are you going to do that? Your co-pilots are not going to have the hour, not have the ability to get the hours.
Scott, from you guys and in your operation, are you guys, for the pilot pool that's coming in, are you seeing a good pool of folks that you're able to draw from, or is it getting difficult as far as recruitment goes?
Very difficult.
Yeah.
Piloting, actually, engineering. There seems to be a slow upsurge. We're still short, don't get me wrong, but we're not at that critical level I felt where we were 2 years ago.
What's scary is to hear some of the stats coming out of the conversations and at the conference. Something to the tune of 600,000 maintainers needed worldwide across all segments of aviation. That's hard to fathom, right? And how do we foster that growth? How do we drive people to our industry? Those are good conversations to be had as well as we enter 2026. Terrence, for you, what are some of the thoughts you have and excitement for 2026?
Well, believe it or not, I can hardly wait for Kelowna to start up again and and get on with it. I may be pounding that drum too much, but I don't think so. The response from the maintenance community to the VMRO conference in Kelowna this year was phenomenal. Being that it was the first and then the inaugural, it shows that to me that there was a need in the industry from the maintenance community specifically, a purposeful knowledge transfer from the old generation to the newer generation. And there's no magic bullet for that. That takes rubbing shoulders. That takes one-on-one. I just don't see any other way to do that. There's a need for what I would term an interdemographic relationship building. Boy, that's a big one right there.
I'm about to say big words here. Someone got his dictionary out today.
We need an acronym.
You're going to have to come up with something for me. But I came up with that one myself. And basically, how do you relate intergenerationally? And we all know the different generations. I'm part of the boomers, and so we go backwards or forwards from there. And so how do you build those relationships? How do you relate? And so that's a big thing. And I saw a need for the maintenance community to feel valued by the whole industry. The buzzword is, or the mantra that you guys have been going with is no maintenance, no mission. There's a value there. That's what I'm hearing when I hear that. And I understand. I mean, everybody understands maintenance is priority, but it's never talked about. It's never limelighted, and we've got it going now. And I think it's really important. And the last need that I saw was to hear and understand the issues across the board. Everybody has such a busy life when it comes to maintainers, but there's so many different things. There's maintenance issues, there's human factors issues, there's regulatory issues and operational issues, and they're all very important. And so those kinds of things, I think you just, the more that we're able to get together, discuss, learn, dialogue, I think the better off our maintenance industry is going to be. And so that was one thing I was looking forward to going into 2026. So I'm looking forward to that again this year. And finally, last but not least, I'm looking forward to Clint Pulver's new weekly series. It's called Manager Mentor Series, Standards and Connection. That's what he was focused on this past week. And if you're not getting it, I would recommend you to subscribe to it. It's just fantastic, and he's such a great leader himself when it comes to that kind of mentorship. So those are the things I'm looking forward to.
He walks the walk for sure. He's a great person, and love that guy. I want to go back to the term you brought. What was it? The term you coined again?
Interdemographic relationship building.
That's a big word. But my interpretation of that is it's basically, talking about the intergenerational transference of knowledge. Is that close?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's all part of it. There's two different issues there, but that's all part of it.
If you start talking about synergy, you can become a management consultant there, Terrence.
Oh, darn.
It's just not about knowledge, though. It's about culture.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's a big one. Like not just doing the task, but taking pride in that task and getting your team on point.
Right.
Yes, exactly. And Scott, where this comes from personally was I can remember when I was an apprentice engineer. I know I've got a good memory. I must have it. That was a long time ago. And I was sharing my passion with this other AME, this old crusty guy who I was given a ride to one day between Dawson Creek and Fort St. John. And anyway, long story short, he was asking me why I got into helicopters and why, blah, blah, blah. So I told him, and I was so excited, and I was just going. And finally, he says to me after, he says, Terry, I want you to promise me one thing. I said, what's that? When you get back off this tour, book yourself in to see a psychologist right away. And he wasn't smiling. And I thought, holy crap, this guy needs to get out. But I never want to end it up like that. And so I do value rubbing shoulders with somebody like that. So I knew what I didn't want to be like at his stage of life. So here I am today, and I guess I'm still as passionate about it.
Yeah, love
John,
that.
can I pause and just talk about the Vertical MRO Conference real quick in Kelowna? By far, Terrence and Scott both said this, but by far that was one of the best events I've ever been to, just in terms of the audience, the interactivity, and so forth. I mean, it was above and beyond. And I think it was partly because of the location, right? People, instead of going to their daily job, just drove there, that day, right? So the location was absolutely perfect. It was perfect weather. It was great conversations and so forth. But beyond that, and I think there's a growth opportunity between Kelowna and Irving, right? I saw the people that were just literally apprentices and 1 to 5 years worth of experience. Like that was where the core was, right? You had your directors of maintenance, you had your chief inspectors, your directors of quality, the head folks. I saw a lot more of those folks, the heads at Irving, right? And I would encourage to all those people who went there, at that more leadership level, make it a case, put it into your 2026 budget request, and bring some of your folks with you. I cannot, you saw it yourself, and for those who didn't attend, let me tell you, like they will learn something. They will appreciate the investment that you're making into them for the next 5 to 10 years. They will recognize you're investing into their career development, where they're going, and you want them to be with you. invest into your people, send them to this conference, and the benefits will outweigh the cost by far.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. The return on any investment to go to any conference is huge. I think for me personally, I think for most people as a whole, the education, the networking, the training that comes out of any conference is critical, but especially this conference. There's nothing else like it. It was great, but you bring up a good point. And Scott, I'll go to you for this, and Terrence as well. Talk about the mindset as a DOM and how to get the justification to release not only the funds to send that person off to get this really great training and really life-changing event, but also the loss of personnel off the line. Talk about how, from your perspective, having been at both locations, how do people justify that?
I have great support at Alpine, and going to this conference, we brought 17 people. We brought our full middle management of engineers, quality assurance. We brought 4 engineers, one from every base. We put them up in a hotel for a week, and the whole deal. And there's a lot of value at our organization, a lot of pride that goes into the people, and I absolutely love it. I love it. And the people, our team is happy to be there. And it's not like you talk about the leadership, you see your whole team bonding with everybody from industry, talking about the same stuff and different issues they're having here over at this company. And it was great. And I don't actually have the challenges you say about putting in the budget. We do a lot of investing in our people, and hope to continue to do that. And people are excited for next year. And I don't know if we'll have 17 people, but that was a big presence, but we'll have at least a dozen.
It speaks loudly to me, the fact that you brought 17 folks. You come back and you're talking to the value of the conference. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, that was a complete waste of our time. You're saying, no, we're going to go back, and it was very valuable, and you're encouraging other people to do the same thing. So that's encouraging to me. We talk about creating a culture and a place that people don't want to leave. If you can't pay your folks more, and a lot of people can't, well, let's enrich their life. Let's provide some training, some experiences for them to go and not only better themselves, but the operator that they work for, right? The information you're getting at these conferences is not only benefiting that person that's there, they're coming back and bringing that information to the folks who weren't there, interjecting those philosophies into their work ethic. I think there's a return on investment in so many different ways, but that's a great one. Thank you to our sponsor, Vertical Aviation International. This March, you need to be at Verticon, the largest vertical aviation trade show and conference in the world. With over 15,000 attendees and all the major OEMs and suppliers, it's the place to be. Register today and save. Early bird prices end January 16th. Go to verticon.org.
I was going to say, you try and quantify that spend, or the only way you can quantify it is people not leaving. People engaging. And is it because of the conference? I think it's you gave them an opportunity.
It's almost the inverse of the fear that you hear from a lot of leadership, is that exposure means, they can see other areas, other things, and be attracted away. And in a sense, that what you just described, Scott, is the exact opposite.
Yeah,
that's great. Terrence, from your perspective, any thoughts there?
For sure. When it comes to quality assurance management, which is one of the areas I specialize in, the operators I was involved with, they looked at it after I kind of kicked it around in their court for a while, and they finally said, yeah, well, we would be ridiculous not to send our people. So they're nowhere as big as Alpine. Out of 6 maintenance people, they sent 5, and so that's pretty significant when it comes down to it. And a lot of those, they have a fair jag of apprentices, and the post-conference meeting that they conducted was phenomenal. They were just, we couldn't shut these guys up about what they enjoyed, and in fact, one of the apprentices that went, she said, "Oh yeah, no, there's." That the girl that was up on that panel, we graduated together in Dawson Creek, and so I mean, it really went a long way to hear, the fact that they were so impressed with all the topics and that were presented, not only on the panel side but on the educational series side, because they got credit for that, and as there is a requirement for recurrency training when it comes to all sorts of things within the engineering side, and so that counted, and so they were able to get credits for those courses that they sat in on as well. The director of maintenance, who I work closely with, one of the things that he said was, out of all of that, I really enjoyed the leadership talk that Clint Pulver gave, and it's hear it coming from him. It spoke miles. It was fantastic. So, because he's kind of early on in his DOM career, and he came out of the field, and so the learning curve has been quite significant. But man, he's just jumping on with both feet. So,
That's great.
So in terms of the financial end of it, it's hard not to justify sending your people when it's kind of that kind of value for dollar. And so, no, it's really good.
Well, I appreciate your guys' insight, and just one more time to talk on Clint. I'll never forget seeing him speak in Kelowna, and you look around the room, it's dead quiet. Well, you can hear Clint,
pin drops.
Yeah, everyone's so engaged, hanging on every word that Clint's putting out. It was really cool to see that, and it just shows the need for those kind of conversations and that level of content to come out of these conferences. So really glad that, Ronie, we kind of went into this topic for a bit. Thanks for leading us down the rabbit hole. I guess I'll start to walk us out and just thank you guys for what you do. Thank you for your passion for the industry. Any closing thoughts, I guess? And Dave, we'll start with you and then we'll go around the horn. Any closing thoughts for this year, for 26, or just anything in general?
I would say my hope for 2026 is, well, I would say that my highlight of 2025 was getting to be in Kelowna and Irving and rubbing shoulders with the community that I've grown to care so much about over the course of this past year and a half, that I'm so proud of, for embracing and supporting the conference, the podcast, and seeing the value in trying to build a community in this way. And the thing that makes me the most excited is the continue to do that in 2026. I'm not joking when I say my email can be found immediately on the MHM website. And if you have an idea, if you would be interested in telling a story on the podcast, the door is open. We're so excited to be that avenue and venue for the community and just being able to continue to tell those stories. And I'm excited to see our host cadre, really continue to take the charge on helping tell those stories. So yeah, that'd be it for me.
Yeah, for the folks that are listening, we're interested in having everybody from first day in A&P school to last day in their careers as a maintainer. Everywhere in between, there's really cool stories to be had. So, please reach out, suggest topics to be discussed, suggest guests to be had. If that includes yourself, that's amazing. Ronie, for you, any closing thoughts?
Maybe it's a little more personal one. I usually don't talk about what I do and all that much, but selling hum systems. This year we are doing our first installations on 3 very major air medical operators for the very first time. Right, the major operators, big fleets. And they want to see what this is about, right? They've heard great news from other operators, and they want to see how can this really help change what I'm doing. I understand the situations I'm having from a manpower perspective, the sustainability of the industry from a part perspective, the insurance costs going up, various other things. They want to see what this is about, right? And so me as a technology person, obviously I love what I do and I love what I help provide. And I don't care if you choose my system or somebody else's system, right? I love seeing that changing dynamic of willingness to do something different to understand how I'm going to operate 5 to 10 years from now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of consolidation still going on. There are a lot of different people. I mean, Blackcomb, they're in Western Canada, right? They sold off all their 212s and they basically, I don't want to say shut down overnight, but there was a lot of different consolidation. People are getting out of the industry. They're consolidating. How are we going to have to do things differently? And they're taking a look at new tools, whether or not they're digital maintenance tracking or hums or heli ladders or whatever else it is. What do I need to do things safer, more efficient, and more sustainable? And I'm excited to see what that change in dynamic has been over the last 12 months. I can't wait to see what it is 5 years from now.
It's interesting how, I don't know if it's a human trait or if it's industry specific or personality specific, but we are reluctant to change, right? We see new technology, like, I'm not going to be the first one to try that, but once you see more people do it, you're like, okay, maybe I'll dip my toe in there. And it's interesting to see that's happening. And it is cool to see the acceptance of some of these newer technologies. In your case, in the Hump's case, it's not a newer technology. It's a proven technology. It's been around for a while. But I think the acceptance has gone way up on that, which is
it's
cool.
acceptance and the it's now more available in terms of just the cost and weight and easy to use and all that aspect. I mean, it's an all of the above of, I never had an option before. I have an option now. Is it required? What do I need? How does this really help me in understanding that value proposition?
Yeah. Scott, for you?
I'm pretty excited. I think I look back to, I think it was a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, I came on the podcast and it was kind of in its grassroots, and now it's evolved into its own entity. You got a maintenance conference. It's huge. It's pretty exciting. The cog is, or what do you say? The wheel has left the house. And
it's been really cool to have people like you join as first a guest and now you're a host on there, and it's people like the three of you who make this all possible. These are the stories that you guys help to tell, and it wouldn't be possible. So sorry to interrupt there, but I just want to compliment you on being part of making it what it is.
Yeah, it's we said it a lot, but it's part of the industry that doesn't get recognized as a industry. Engineers don't advocate for themselves; pilots do, and not in a bad way. It's just our personality traits. We're happy to be in the back working, but now we got somewhere to come together and chat and talk about the different challenges and successes.
Terrence?
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to actually co-hosting with you guys. I'm really excited about that. I think there's so many topics that are valid and valuable to this industry. So I'm very excited about that. I've got a passion for quality assurance management, and that's something that is close to my heart. So you'll see that in the first article that came out in Vertical here this past issue that just hit the deck. And so I've got lots of ideas and lots of different topics that can hopefully help other operators and other maintainers. That's always something that a lot of us really don't. All we do is make time for it because we have to. And there's ways to do it that cleans things up, that makes it make sense. And it's a lot more than just checking boxes. And so if I can help anybody with that, that's what I'm all about.
Excited to bring you in, to read your content, to hear your conversations, and just again to elevate the industry as a whole. I'll just finish by thanking everybody for allowing me to be a part of these conversations. It's been truly an honor. I'm in awe of the work that the maintenance community does on a daily basis. I look at the level and breadth of knowledge that folks have doing the job, and it's so impressive. I think from avionics to systems knowledge to structures and everything else, it's just the breadth of knowledge blows me away. So kudos to you all. Lift my hat to you guys. Excited to hear the conversations as they come up. David, thank you for your hard work. Rob on the other side of the HeliCAST platform, doing the Lord's work out there, making these conversations what they are. The quality is amazing. So you guys absolutely do a phenomenal job. So looking forward to next year's conversations. And until then, we'll catch you later.
Stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors.
Safe Structure Designs offers creative, customizable ergonomic safety solutions with over 20 years of experience. Their custom design process is free, ensuring safety and efficiency. Let them create your ideal solution. Visit www.safe-2.com. That's www.safe-2.com for more information.
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.
Thank you to our sponsor, Vertical Aviation International. This March, you need to be at Verticon, the largest vertical aviation trade show and conference in the world. With over 15,000 attendees and all the major OEMs and suppliers, it's the place to be. Register today and save. Early bird prices end January 16th. Go to verticon.org. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Vertical MRO Podcast, brought to you by Vertical HeliCASTS and partnered with Vertical Magazine. We hope you enjoyed the Vertical MRO Podcast this past year. As we look toward 2026, it's clear that the future is bright, filled with potential for the next generation of aviation professionals. Thank you for being part of the journey, and we look forward to continuing these important conversations next year. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year from all of us at MHM Publishing and the Vertical HeliCASTS team.